Tim Storm defeats Jack Stane for the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship, NWA Texoma on October 21st, 2016 in the Elks Lodge, in Sherman, Texas, USA. What an
Yeah.
incredible moment that had to be for you.
Oh, it was great. It's you know it there were some leaders in the organization, and all of those had to basically give me the stamp of approval, because you don't make that choice lightly. Um, I had I had quite a few shots at that title over the years. I mean, I think you and I talked about it. One of my second or third year, I wrestled for that title against Dan Severn. Wrestled AJ Styles when he had it. So I had several opportunities, and I had probably been beaten three times in really good matches. If you like physical wrestling, uh, Jackson and I learned that we could just destroy each other, and that's the way we went at every match. So Jax came to my home turf, Texoma, and it's an Elks Lodge. If you can, they seem a lot of them look alike, but we actually talked about that this weekend. Jackson and I sitting up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and it was one of the biggest crowds we'd ever had. It was standing room only. They were solidly behind me, which is a great feeling, to do that on your home turf. And James Beard was the referee. Had a
Oh,
lot of my
wow.
friends there, so it was, yeah, it was a big moment, and it was a very emotional moment. I'm check myself here because this is not, but I feel emotion when I think about it now.
That's awesome.
I knew that night I didn't have a clue how long I would have that championship, but I knew I was on a list of the greatest names in my name, at least in my mind. And again, not there are a lot of great wrestlers that didn't hold that title and were fantastic, but I knew they couldn't take my name off that list.
Yeah,
If I had it
forever.
for, if I had it for like Giant Baba and had it for a week or whatever, 3 days or whatever he had it. Perry Von Erich didn't hold it very long, but I knew they couldn't take my name off the list. And a lot of people looked at that like, what year did you say? 2016? Is that?
2016, yep, October.
Um, a lot of people at that time in 2016 said this is kind of the pat on the back. Good job, Tim Storm. We appreciate you as you roll off into the sunset. Probably a short term title run, and it turned into over a year. And the Lightning One era starts during that, which is a really big reason why I continue to move forward with it.
And just as a full circle thing, you talked about James being the referee. You talked about being in front of people who loved you, and you just mentioned earlier in 2007, 9 years prior, you were talking about retiring, and you told us in the prior interview, I think it was like 2001, 2002, you contemplated and did retire for maybe a year, 6 months, 8 months, and you had all these stops and starts, but it had to be so fulfilling to finally reach, such a pinnacle. Because again, you grew up with the NWA, you grew up idolizing the NWA champion. So for you to have the moment, not to try to make you emotional right here by making you think about it even more, but it's such a this is why I love this. This is why I love doing this because I love these moments. That's what makes you love wrestling.
Well, I'm passionate about wrestling. I'm not passionate about a lot of things. I'm generally speaking it's annoying sometimes, but I'm very level, very even killed. I try to keep everything on, I don't, not highs, not lows. That was definitely a high point. And like you said, I've said from the beginning, I grew up loving the NWA. I marked out for going to someplace in Northwest or North Central Arkansas because they had the NWA on their poster. So to get that moment with guys that I love, with James Beard and Jack Stane, and get in the ring, and again at this point, Jackson and I have wrestled I don't know how many times, who knows, how many dozens and dozens of times, and to finally get that moment, um, it was huge. I mean, like I said, didn't know how long I was going to hold it. but I knew that I was on the list of the legends of wrestling to me. It was very emotional. Um, it still is when I think about it. And I think Mick Foley. I think it was in the first Mick Foley book when he had a match and he talked about something happening in the match, and he said he stood up and he took a slow turn, and as he stood up, and he said he could see this huge arena of people standing up as he turned. Um, and they said, what did you think about that? And he said, that's the highest point that I've ever had in wrestling. And they said, well, what's your lowest point? And he said, thinking I may never get there again.
Wow.
So that's where I was at. And it's turns out I haven't, and probably never will at 59. But again, high point of my wrestling career. Uh, I mean, having kids and grandkids and all those things, you can't compare. That's different. That's just a whole different ball game.
Mm-hmm.
But wrestling was, it's not the very first thing I did for Lightning One, when Billy made the purchase, and I went out to California and defended it at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I used the term, this is my mountaintop.
Yeah.
And I love wrestling. Every time I get in the ring, it's an honor. It's a privilege, because I honestly don't know. I tag everything these days with, I appreciate every single time, thankful every time, because you don't know if you're going to get another chance. And, that was my mountaintop.
And not to
Unless
be
I win it
cliche,
again, it's going to remain my mountaintop.
not to be cliche here either, because obviously that's a great attitude to have too. But I do think, and I personally, I think you might be selling yourself a little bit short, because you've done so much, after that, even farther. But let's say that was all it was, right? That one amazing moment. It's like the one hit wonder arguments. Like, how many hits has 99.9% of the world had? A one hit wonder is one more hit than almost anybody else in the world had. You having that one special moment is more than thousands and thousands of wrestlers have dreamed about having and couldn't. And again, that's not a shot at them, of course, but it's such a special moment, such a special moment.
Is. And so many things have to happen, have to align to get you there.